What a horrible, not fun, boring football game to talk about. Thank God you have Jason Aponte and Andrew Pasquini with the Sprint Right Option podcast to talk about it for you. It starts now.
Welcome, everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go, Niners.
Let's go, Niners. Sprint Right Option podcast. Oh my goodness. It is a new episode of the Sprint Right Option podcast. I am Andrew Pasquini, joined as always by Jason Aponte. And Jason, let's just get right into it today because there's a lot to talk about. If you thought talking about the football game yesterday was bad and painful and whatever words you want to throw in, let's talk about the other thing we like to talk about, injuries on this podcast, because that's what we're going to open with before we talk about the Vikings game, because it is breaking news as of the last hour or so. News comes out that Deebo Samuel is going to miss. I've seen a couple weeks. I've seen multiple weeks with a strained calf injury. Not the news you want to hear coming out of the game yesterday. Jason, kind of your instant reaction. We don't have much going on it right now. I mean, there's not much to know about it. Deebo Samuel is going to miss the next couple weeks. That's all you really need to know. After yesterday, everything encapsulated. What are your first thoughts on the Deebo Samuel news?
Well, just thank God that it's kind of happening now. I mean, there's never a good time for a Deebo Samuel injury. There's never a good time to have any 49er player out. But, I know we talked about this and I got freezing cold take for it about facing the Vikings. Honestly, that's like one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me in my life. But the Rams are the walking wounded, literally, and I mean they're the walking wounded in the wrong positions. Offensive line, secondary, obviously now Cup and Nakua. But the New England Patriots are after. This is why we wanted the 49ers to kind of stack these wins the first 4 or 5 weeks, because things are going to get hairy later on. So I don't know the severity of the injury, multiple weeks, couple weeks, everything has kind of just been thrown out there. But if there was ever a time for this, it would probably be right now. And I have a message to the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, and their players. Wake the fuck up. Because you going up against the Los Angeles Rams, I feel fine with Jordan Mason, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. Some teams wish that they could have that many players. Wake the fuck up and stop playing around.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the schedule. Let's look at it. Next month and a half or so, it's at Rams versus Patriots, which are like two winnable games right now. Rams aren't looking great. The Patriots are the Patriots. But then you kind of roll into this stretch of Arizona, and Arizona is Arizona, but
Arizona's good.
We're kind of in this weird spot where I think I'd rather face the Rams right now than Arizona, which the Niners get to do. Then they go to Seattle, which is a 2-0 team, Kansas City, Dallas, to Tampa Bay, which is another 2-0 team, and then the Seahawks again. So, it's going to start getting harder. This was the Jets game. It is what it is. Niners won that game. That could have been considered a tough game. But then you look at a schedule with the Vikings, the Patriots, and the Cardinals, and I know the Cardinals and Rams are kind of flip-flopping right now, but the schedule gets really hard in a couple weeks, and this is really where you want to start banking those wins. We mentioned it with the McCaffrey injury last week, but now the Deebo injury is in effect, and now it's like, okay, how many touches is Jordan Mason going to get? Because Deebo Samuel's been that spell running back. Isaac Guerrero got a touch yesterday, and it didn't go well. And so how the offense is going to look in the next couple of weeks, and we mentioned all the weapons, all the targets, and now it's just down to second team All-Pro Brandon Ayuk, who hasn't been seen since his contract extension. George Kittle, who's doing pretty well, and you got the master of the sideline catch and Kyle Juszczyk. You're starting to lose names on this offense, and the game yesterday really didn't encourage me with this offense. And I'm sure we're going to talk about it a little bit with Brian Flores as well, so it's not a entire Niner issue. But man, with the stretch of games coming up, because even after the Seahawks, it's Packers and Bills. It's a tough schedule, and the Niners need to start banking wins now. And now missing two of the most important pieces on the offense, it doesn't feel good.
No, and why would it? But I still contend Kyle Shanahan's play calling, Brock Purdy, who we have a lot to discuss on this episode and going forward. Jordan Mason, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, most teams would kill
Hmm.
to have those sort of weapons.
Hmm.
Um, you still have to find a way to pull this one out
Yeah.
in week 3.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of reasons why the 49ers didn't win in week 2. And it seems like they're the same reasons that we were kind of labeling for the previous game against the Vikings in terms of mistakes and oh my god, and it's what for whatever reason they play like that. And I can go through every single year with Kyle Shanahan as the 49ers coach that they have games like this.
Yeah.
And we all look back on them and we just say, how on earth did we allow that to happen? And then after they run through November and December and they beat all the good teams and then they go into January and win all those big games, we kind of look back and laugh, which is
Yeah.
why I have a hard time with being super panicked
Yeah.
in week 2, just based on the track record right now that the 49ers have been able to have with Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, I think my quick takeaway from the game yesterday is I'm not super panicked, as you just said, but let's talk about the things that could make us panic maybe in the future if they continue, dare I say, Jason. So let's go into it. Niners lose yesterday to the Minnesota Vikings 23-17. I didn't enjoy it. It wasn't a very fun watch. I don't think it was a fun watch for a lot of Niner fans out there, especially that one 97-yard play I'm sure we're going to talk about at some point here in the next 40 minutes or so. But it's just I want to throw it into the category of the Niners had this game on Christmas last year, Jason. They had this version of a game where they put up an absolute stinker on Christmas, and a month later they were rolling through the playoffs. So that's really my first
At
thought
least that was
about it.
against the Baltimore Ravens, though.
That's fair. That was against a very good team. But hey, the Minnesota Vikings undefeated 2-0, maybe a good team. We don't know. 2 weeks into the season, probably not, Jason. I'm just devil's advocating there. But it's just we've seen this game from Kyle Shanahan, specifically against Brian Flores as well. And like I got a hand up because I talked about how it was hard to take away anything from the Vikings defense in week 1 when watching it because Daniel Jones and that Giants offense is so bad. And then the Vikings defense kind of made the Niners offense look like the Giants a little bit yesterday, and that wasn't very good. So, Jason, before we get into our things we want to really dive into, because I have a few things that I'm sure, and you definitely have a few things, Jason. What is your overarching takeaway from the second game of the 49ers season yesterday? Oh,
I feel like
I
breaking
don't.
this. We're
There
good.
we go. You're back.
Yeah.
You started talking. Didn't hear you. You're back though.
No, no, no. Look, I said it during the preview. Um, the Jets defense is more talented
Mhm.
than the Vikings defense. The Vikings defense is better because of Brian Flores and
Mhm.
the way that he's going to run this.
Mhm.
This was going to be the bigger test. And that's when everyone got all upset about like I forget if it was I forget which 49ers offensive player said, "Oh, this is more of a more of a test than the Jets." And everyone was just like, "Oh, he's disrespecting." He wasn't disrespecting. Styles make fights. And
Yeah.
Brian Flores, Jim Schwartz, and Steve Spagnuolo, they give fits to Kyle Shanahan.
Mhm.
And when you look up and down the talent on the defense and you look through it, you can say the New York Jets are more talented. The New York Jets don't pose more of a challenge
Mhm.
to the San Francisco 49ers than the Minnesota Vikings defense because of what they were running. And once I watched the film again today, it was quite clear that Brian Flores and that defense did an amazing job of disguising looks. They got to two high looks in the craziest ways.
Mhm.
It's a lot of showing 7, dropping 3, showing 7, rushing 6. It's a lot of that, and you got
Mhm.
to give them credit. Now, did the 49ers play their best game? No, but that's why I was nervous about this matchup with this defense. It wasn't because, oh my God, the Minnesota Vikings have Daniil Hunter and this guy and this guy and
Yeah.
this guy. It's more because they have a better coordinator who understands how to stop the offense.
I think you even saw that too, because wasn't there a clip after the game of Purdy going up to Flores and like saying like, "Hey, you schemed
Great
us," or
scheme. Yep.
whatever it was. So maybe that's something the Niners put in their back pocket for a potential future matchup against Brian Flores and the Minnesota Vikings if the Vikings, run the gauntlet and make the playoffs, and we could be talking about that in January. But it's just, it doesn't feel great that like a quarterback is saying that. Nothing against Purdy. I mean, I'm not complaining Purdy said it, but having your starting quarterback as the two teams are like saying goodbye to each other, saying that is like, oh, okay, like he just got beat, and it is what it is.
I think that was kind of just a show of respect.
Yeah,
I don't really look too deep into that.
no,
I think that was just a sign of respect, and I think again, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter who the Minnesota Vikings are running out there, who's their quarterback, who's their defensive coordinator. It seems like they just kind of own the 49ers at this point, right?
it seems so. I mean, the Minnesota winning streak now goes 8 games back to 1992.
Mhm,
Jason, let's go. 3 things that we brought to this podcast that we want to
mhm,
talk about the game. I got to come up with a better name for that. I think we got to come up with like a segment name for it.
mhm.
I'll start because I want to start with my first thing I took away is a verbal meme. It's a meme I'm going to explain to you, and Jason, you'll love it. We're in a grocery store. A man walks up to a phone and presses the intercom button and farts
And
in it. That's what
farts
the
into
Niners did. That's what the Niners did yesterday. It just, that's my first takeaway is the Niners just, I'm not overreacting because it's week 2. This is all going to sound overreactionary. This is
yeah.
a week 2 loss. That is what it is. But what a miserable, miserable football game that was. I don't think at any point after, this halftime that I think the Niners were going to win that game. And maybe it was the Justin Jefferson 97-yard touchdown that just ripped the spirit out of me. But at no point after maybe that play did I think the Niners were going to come back and win, even when they were really trying to, because they got to a point where it's like, hey, maybe the ball bounces the correct way and maybe the Niners get back into it. But it just was really one of those games where I don't want to. I listen, I was on my couch in Sacramento, California. I can't tell the vibe of the San Francisco 49ers. I don't know. This is pure speculation. It just didn't feel like the Niners cared yesterday. And it is what it is. Like it's game 2, as I said, game 2 of 17. It really felt like everything was off. And maybe that's Brian Flores, but there were some issues on special teams that I might talk about here in a little bit that I didn't like, especially the blocked punt and Mitch Wishnowski's maybe lack of trying to touch down a guy. I don't know. That's neither here nor there. Everything just felt off. But let me take my negative and spin it to a positive. I'd rather everything feel off in week 2 in the season than week 17, dare I say. So let me take my negative into it with a positive. I just felt like the Niners played a really, really bad football game, and that's my first thing I'm coming with to this podcast.
100%. And Brian
Yes.
Flores has a lot to do with it, but
Yes.
Brian Flores doesn't have anything to do with Brock Purdy making bad decisions,
Mm-hmm.
guys not being able to get open, the offensive line struggling the entire game,
Mm-hmm.
um, play calls on 4th and goal. Which, by the way, hey Kyle Shanahan, you 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 going for it on 4th? I like it. I like it.
Okay.
Again, like it doesn't end the way that you want, but I like it. Um, all of these losses that we look at, when I point back to Cleveland, right last season. I point back to the fact that the kicker missed the field goal,
Yeah.
would have won the game. I point back to last year's Minnesota game. The kicker missed the field goal. Christian McCaffrey fumbles the football. You have that horrible call at the end of the half. It seems like whenever the 49ers lose, it's not because they're getting outclassed.
Yes.
It's not because they're getting outworked. It's because they are killing themselves one way or another. And in certain aspects of the game, it was just mental mistakes, miscommunications. Obviously, turning over the football doesn't help. What are you doing on some of these play calls? I absolutely hate that 4th and goal play call.
Mm-hmm.
I love you going for it, but if you need 1 yard, why on earth are you going to send Purdy back 4 more yards
Mm-hmm.
when you could just put him under center, hand Jordan Mason the football, and try to let him get a running start to getting a yard? It's not one thing, but it's a lot of things. And it seems like anytime the 49ers lose, we can point to every single thing that kind of contributed to that. And that goes all the way back to the Super Bowl. So it's just funny how these losses under Kyle Shanahan can all be quantified as they really killed themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the only time I've ever seen the 49ers get absolutely worked, where it wasn't like um, it was all on them, it's probably the Arizona game with Colt McCoy. They got absolutely worked in that game.
Mm-hmm.
And God, what's another one?
Brian Allen game.
Brian Allen against Miami.
Which,
You
by the
got
way, just want to throw it out there.
anniversary's coming up.
Well, not even that. I was curious. I looked at it, see what Kyle Shanahan has done against Brian Flores. That was their third matchup against Brian Flores, twice as the Vikings D coordinator. Brian Flores was the Dolphins head coach
Mhm.
at the Brian Allen game. The 49ers scored 17 points in all three of those games.
Yeah,
It's
17
just something
points
weird.
and 17 points is what is the 17 what they put up in the Super Bowl? And is the 17 what they put up against Jim Schwartz with the Browns? 17.
I know
17.
it was the Super Bowl 17 49ers.
I don't think it was. I don't think it
I
was.
don't
Who
think it
cares?
was.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, that game doesn't
against
matter. We're not here to talk about that game. We're here to talk to you about the game
but
that hurt us yesterday.
17 against Jim Schwartz, though.
Yes.
17 is the number. 17.
17 against the Bengals in that third loss in a row last year as well.
17.
17. So there you go. 17 is the number. So Niners score more than 17 points. We feel good. We feel, is that the way we want to take that? And just score more than 7. Score as many points as you can, 49ers, if you want to win more football games. Yeah, I didn't like that game. I want to throw it away, and that's what we're going to do after this podcast. I mean, I got an article to write after this, but I want to throw this game away as quick as I can because I do not think it is. As I said, it was bad. It was not good. I don't think it's indicative of what the 2024 San Francisco 49ers are whatsoever. I think this is one you can throw away. But it's something that exists. It's something that happened. It's a bummer that it happened the way it did. I just don't ever want to see that version of the 49ers team again. And then that's my last takeaway on it. So, Jason, after I just kind of took everything and said the Niners had a really bad game, all in all, you want to give me your first thing you brought to this podcast to talk about? Because I just took everything. So what do you got now?
Let's start with the first thing, and I think after watching the film, I have I've calmed down, and emotions are high right after a football game.
Yes.
Emotions are high when your team loses to someone who's not good at football, like Sam Darnold, right?
Yeah.
It's week fucking 2.
Yes.
I don't want to be overly optimistic and just like sell people dreams. The 49ers weren't going undefeated. And there's going to be another loss against a team that's inferior that we're going to have to scratch our heads at. But for every one of those during Kyle Shanahan's time, they've beaten teams that are better when it matters. Turn it down, Averly, please. That is the part that I have a hard time with. Look, if you're nervous because things that have popped up in this game kind of trigger you because of when it's happened in big moments, I won't argue with you there. But I'll be damned if a team that in October and September, when they start, usually has a one or two of these games during Kyle Shanahan's time, but then in November and December, and then all of a sudden in January, win all these games. I'll be damned if today is the day that all of a sudden I'm jumping ship or I'm lighting everything on fire. Was it a win they should have had? Sure. Is there going to be another game that we thought that they should win? Sure. Absolutely. Probably 2, maybe 3. But for me, I have a hard time jumping out the window off of this game because I know that the 49ers blew it in terms of how they played and why it was on them. And this has been a theme over seasons. And I'm not worried like that. It's not a fun win. It was hard to watch that film again. It was not fun to watch that game. The Minnesota Vikings are probably going to win maybe 5 more games the rest of the year.
Okay.
And we're going to look back and say, oh man, like how? But that's the point. The Vikings are going to win 5 more games maybe the rest of the year. And the 49ers most likely are going to be playing deep into January. I have a hard time with week 2 and losing my mind over this game. The only thing I lost my mind was execution. And that's something that we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about that. And I feel like you and I went through like almost the same like timeline of emotions almost yesterday because I was very much Same. Like when that game ended, I was miserable. I hated everything. Like that's why I think it's so amazing you do the post show, like post game shows, because I would have been grumpy. Like admittedly, I would have been very grumpy breaking that game. Like if that was the Monday night game, I would have been so grumpy post show. But now we got time. But like it's kind of funny because I tweeted about 6 o'clock last night. I'm at peace with the 49ers game, 17-game season, bound to have a stinker or two. About an hour later, Jason, there's a ton of overreactions to Minnesota, today's loss to Minnesota. Team played mistake-filled game, block punt, mental mistakes, yada, yada. Why on earth would you panic after one loss? And like, it's almost like you and I went through the same emotions on the same timeline yesterday. So I'm happy that we're on that. But yes, it's the second game of the season. Would you rather them, not to compare it to last year, because I know we already made the comparison with Baltimore. Baltimore's better, but would you rather them have this stinker in week 2 and then fix it for the next couple of weeks or whatever? Or would you rather them go through a miserable 3-game losing streak through October like last season? Like I just think people forget the San Francisco 49ers are a very good football team. They should win more games than they don't, especially against the Minnesota Vikings. But let me tell you a little secret, Jason Aponte. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs have lost at least one game in every season they've played under Patrick Mahomes. Aaron Rodgers has lost at least a game. And like I understand that the 49ers are a Super Bowl caliber team. They are a playoff caliber team. They're a team that's defending NFC champions. The Minnesota Vikings aren't very good. But that little sentence, Jason, any given Sunday. And again, not to brag that the Sprint Right Option podcast is the smartest podcast that you could watch on YouTube, but it is. We both picked the San Francisco 49ers, and our reasoning was they are a better team. They will beat the Vikings unless they don't play their game. We don't see them not playing their game, so we're picking the 49ers. And what happened? The 49ers did not play their game. They let Brian Flores kind of dictate what they did on offense. The Niners defense wasn't very good, which I'm sure we're going to get to here in a second. But you're absolutely correct, Jason. This is week 2. This is one, too, where if the Niners had come back and won, I'd be talking about how good the 49ers are, because good teams win games they're not supposed to win. And that was a game yesterday the Niners weren't supposed to win, and the Vikings just happened to hold on. Like the Niners weren't supposed to. Let me rephrase that because I'm afraid people are going to take it and me saying the Niners should not have beat the Vikings. I'm talking about going into the fourth quarter. That was not a game the 49ers should have won because they played bad. They had a chance to still win it. So I think that's something that we should take away from it. But again, Jason, go back to your point. It is week 2.
The Baltimore Ravens are 0-2. The Dallas Cowboys got absolutely dog walked by the New Orleans Saints.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions lost to the Tampa Bay Bucks. It's week 2.
Mm-hmm.
The Seattle Seahawks are 2-0. Do we all believe now all of a sudden the Seattle Seahawks are some dominant force? It's ebbs and flows. Everything's going to go this way. This is like another extended preseason game, it felt like. And I like Alex's point here. The problem is we lose to the same teams the same way every time. Odds are if we make the Super Bowl, the Chiefs are going to be there and it'll likely be the same result. I understand that because I literally sat and watched that Bengals Chiefs game. And somehow the third Patrick Mahomes interception gets wiped off the board with a penalty. Somehow with that Hail Mary on the fourth play, a pass interference. Why is it always that they get something?
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Yeah.
They get something. And why is it that the 49ers at times, all right, I don't want to say all the time because they definitely got something in the Detroit game, in the NFC Championship.
Yeah.
Drop passes, Dan Campbell, farting, out of his brain when it came to being on fourth down.
Yes.
A fumble from Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm not gonna act like they don't ever get anything. But in the biggest moments, they just don't get it. Now, is week 2 the biggest moment? No. But I'm just specifically talking about what Alex said. And I think that's what, if anyone's panicked, they're less panicked about the fact that the 49ers are going to be a playoff team who wins a bunch of games this season and more scared about this happening at the wrong time.
Okay.
At the worst time. This type of game happening at the worst time. And I think that conversation is at least fair.
Yeah. Yeah, and unfortunately for the Niners, it hasn't happened at the worst time, and it's just been these mid-season stinkers, and then they don't mean anything, but they happen, and it's just really about finding a way to clear them out. Jason, I'm going to go to my second thing now,
Yep.
and it's going to be one play, and I wanted to make sure I asked this question the correct way because I think there's 18 different ways to ask it. I'm going to come at it from this angle though, because you watched the film.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me any situation, and this isn't even a George Odom
Mm-hmm.
complaint. This
Mm-hmm.
is a explain to me any situation where you have a safety
Mm-hmm.
on the line
Mm-hmm.
with Justin Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start with that angle because that's what I'm curious about because I might be wrong. Maybe safeties come up on Justin Jefferson all the time. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me kind of the logic in that.
Okay, so that is, how do we explain? Not ideal, right?
Okay.
That's not
I
what
like how
you
you did
want.
that. How do we explain that? Not
Not
great.
ideal. Not great, Bob. Aaron Boone would say it's not what you want.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but however, and we are a big, big, big pro Jair Brown
Yes.
podcast. When you are a guy who doesn't have straight line speed and you're in single high and you have the best wide receiver running towards you, any little misstep is going to allow you to be in trouble. Credit to Sam Darnold, man, because I think George Odom played it as good as he could, even if he was in the wrong position. He absolutely was perfectly where he was supposed to be underneath. Tig ran the wrong way. And he just did, and he allowed, and Justin Jefferson knew that once he put his foot in the ground, he was going to run right past him. And so did Sam Darnold. And Darnold let that thing go.
Mm.
Love Tig, man, but you gotta be smarter than that, especially when you're 17 yards away from the play, man.
Mm-hmm.
You are single high. Your job, obviously, everybody's there to bracket in one way or another, whether it's the right bracket or not. Man, I have a hard time blaming George Odom, who's a special teamer, and I have a little bit of like looking at Jair Brown, like, damn, man, you wrong step and you let him start to get moving and he's already faster than you and he's the best in the world, and that's the result you end up with. And by the way, incredible throw by Sam Darnold,
Yeah.
50 yards through the air, man. But yeah, Tig, you got to clean that shit up, man. You really do. And I think the world of him. I think he's going to be an amazing player. I think, was he put in the best spot because of whatever they called on defense? And forgive me because I'm not certain. But yeah, man, I've got a lot more blame for Jair Brown on that play than I do George Odom, who shouldn't be in that position to begin with.
That's tough. Look at that. I like that. See, I ask a question that I think is a little silly, and you're like, Andrew, it was a little silly. It was more on the other safety. So I like it. I learned, and that's the thing because that play, I mean, what's the most maddening part about it? Like the safety breakdown, right? The 97-yard aspect of it, or it's Sam Darnold throwing the football. And like that just was the worst possible play I think that could have happened yesterday for 49er fans. And it was, as I said, it was probably the play that it gave up. It almost was my like, oh, so like the Niners aren't winning this. And it was only 10-0. So like maybe a little early on my fault. But it was one of those things, man, where I just.
Well, also, Andrew, it's on the back of not getting any points on a fourth
Mm-hmm,
and goal.
mm-hmm,
The swing. And we're a big vibes podcast. The vibes
yes,
were horrible
yes.
after that. I think that's the biggest issue more than anything is, holy shit. You were there, you had a chance, you're on the one, you get a fourth and goal, and you're like, well, I understand the thought process because if you don't get it on fourth and goal, now they've got to go 99 yards. Well, guess what? They just fucking went 98 yards on your one play. And that's when you're just like, it starts to get into your mind like, all right, man, this is, like, I love saying all right, man. If I should have shot every time I said all right, man, in like the most like sarcastic way,
Yeah.
I'd have been hammered by halftime.
Yeah.
But all right, man, like this might not be our day. And all right, man, what are we doing? Who's going to do something? The 49ers are too talented to not have someone other than the GOAT, Fred Warner, to do something in this game.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to talk a lot Fred Warner in a bit, specifically in the 3 stars area of the
I was
game.
gonna say, spoiler alert, he's my 1 star.
Yeah, he's going to be our 1. So I think there's an argument to be made. He should just be all 3 stars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made. Jason, what's your second thing? Oh, here we go. Gray Fox just popped up with a comment. Thank you very much, Gray Fox, for the
super chat.
Super chat. We appreciate it. Where were the blitzes? This ain't the 2019 D line where we were getting pressure with the front 4. It wasn't a blowout thanks to Warner. Jason, was that maybe your next thing you wanted to talk about? Because I can bring up the pass rush as well.
I got a hard time being mad at the regular defensive line.
Okay.
Not blitzes. The 4.
Yeah.
We pointed out all week. Ed Ingram, Garrett Bradbury, awful on the interior.
Mm-hmm.
Javon Hargrave. Yeah, I saw you flash on one play. Where are you?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you? Nick Bosa, 2 sacks. One of them, you ran into the second sack. Leonard Floyd, where are you?
Mm-hmm.
Where are you?
Mm-hmm.
So I have less issues with, blitzes and bringing pressure. With where's the front 4?
Mm-hmm.
And again, week 1 we had no notes, right? We're like, everything's great, everything looked good. You bullied the shit out the Jets, whatever, right? And then this week, I got tons of notes. Like, Javon Hargrave, I don't want to keep getting on you, man. But you get paid way too much to never have your name called.
Mm-hmm.
Nick Bosa gets 2 sacks, cool. Leonard Floyd, non-existent. Non-existent. Blitzes is one thing. Front 4 has got to be fucking better. Oh, my God, they've got to be better. And it's really bad, man. Oh, my God.
I said it on Friday, but it makes it even worse that you see Dexter Lawrence got 6 pressures against the same offensive line in week 1. And Javon Hargrave, the guy the Niners are playing to be, their Dexter Lawrence quality guy, is getting 2. And you mentioned he had 1 play. I was so excited in the third quarter to throw his. I'm like, oh, I'm typing Hargrave's name. He had a pressure in the first quarter. It's like, okay, maybe we're rolling.
And he caused that intentional grounding for gross models. Like that was all Hargrave.
You said, sorry, this is way off topic. You say Gross Matos. Whoever the play-by-play guy was, the first time he said it, he called him Yitzhak Gross Matos.
Yes.
And it was in so my head. Gross Matos. Like, I know, listen, this is a very serious podcast. We want to pronounce names correctly.
It's an unserious podcast, in my opinion.
Gross Matos is the best way to pronounce that name. I apologize. But yes, absolutely, Jason. The pass rush needs to be there. I know that wasn't your second thing. Great Fox, thank you for the donate or the super chat. We really appreciate it. Jason, what's your second thing you brought to this set?
Just offensive line as a whole. And I think this is literally the opposite spectrum of where they were last week against the New York Jets. Last week against the New York Jets, they handled everything. Stunts, everything that was thrown at them. This week, Trent Williams didn't have a good game.
Ooh.
And I'm sorry that you had to hear it from me, but you watched it. I think Trent Williams is the best in the world. I think he's going to go down as the best left tackle of all time. But in week 2 on Sunday in Minnesota, he did not have a good game.
Mm-hmm.
The only person who allowed more pressures than Trent Williams was Colton McKivitz. And this is why initial watches are tough, because everybody's going to run to, this is what's going on. I, for one, thought it was the interior offensive line that was really getting whipped.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watched the tape, Trent Williams is either missing the free rusher, confused by what they're looking at, miscommunications, and it's not just Trent, it's the whole line. It's the whole line. So I just want to point out that Trent Williams did not have a good game on Sunday. That's it. No, nothing, a full period, full stop. Offensive line, I understand if there's someone in front of you who's better than you, because you can't beat that.
Yeah.
But the miscommunication is not understanding what you're looking at, and Colton McKivitz got pushed on his ass so many times. Oh my God, man. It's like the play that I posted on Twitter was them showing 7 on the blitz, dropping 3 and sending 4, and somehow the 4 still knocked Colton McKivitz down to the ground on his ass.
That's so confusing. Like you just saying that though, showing 7, dropping 3, and bringing 4. Like nobody does that. And then that's just like that. It's just more Brian Flores talk. But I apologize. I mean to interrupt.
No, it was great. I thought it was. Look, I thought that there was plenty of plays. If you're watching, they're mugging 2 over the center, two blitzers, and they're just dropping them back, and just sending guys. And it's when everyone says exotic, it's not like they're overloading one spot. Is they're showing you everybody up front, and then they're moving. Like it's a masterclass. Tip your cap to Brian Flores. But I expect Trent Williams, I expect Kyle Shanahan, I expect this offensive line to be able to pick those things up better. And I don't want to, open up another old wound, but the 49ers lost Super Bowl largely because of a miscommunication on the line. Not that Chris Jones was whipping their ass the entire time. So I think that's, again, it goes back to Axel's point. But the offensive line, man, you have to just be a little bit like I'm not even asking them to like be stone walls. Just be a little bit better here and there, man. I think the offensive line, like, it wasn't like terrible, but man, the times that they missed, it was really bad. And if it starts with Trent Williams and having 4 pressures and a sack in a hurry, that's scary because think about who else is on that line. And I'm not going to look at Pooney because he's a rookie, but man, if there's one thing I want to set my watch to, is Trent Williams being really good.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that isn't too hard to ask.
And that's the thing I think that concerns me the most about this offensive line and why it stands out so much this performance is, I mean this in a nice way, man, but like you're used to Colton McKivitz 6 pressures. You're used to the right guard having 3 pressures. Not to take out Pooney, he's only his second game. But when you look at these pressure numbers, the one thing you kind of bank on is Trent Williams, like 1, 0. Where the rest of the offensive line had a poor game, Trent Williams is usually the guy who's holding it up and making things better. But man, Trent Williams was part of the problem yesterday, and we can't really say much on it because he's never really part of the problem, and this is the exception more to the rule.
Right.
But
next week he's going to give up no pressures. So
he'll be solid the next couple of weeks. But for yesterday, what the Niners needed. It wasn't 4 pressures out of Trent Williams. It wasn't a sack allowed. It wasn't a hit allowed. It wasn't 2 hurries. It was they needed Trent Williams to be Trent Williams, and they just didn't get it. No, that's not me blaming Trent Williams for this loss. Absolutely not. But like just factual, I think Trent Williams would tell you that it wasn't his best performance, and that's okay. It's just man, in a game where like you just expect Trent Williams to be Trent Williams, he wasn't, and that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, and Gray Fox, thank you for the super chat. Javon Hargrave should super chat his salary to you, goats. You bring more value than whatever he's doing. I appreciate the kind words, but yes, Javon Hargrave is a massive man. It'll probably pick me up and break me in half if you heard me read that out loud, So
I like the first half. I'll take a super chat of his salary. Like, not because we're better, more entertaining. I would like his salary. I think that would be a pretty cool thing to have personally, Jason. My third and final thing, Jason, we could probably just brush over it. This is a Andrew complaint corner situation. And usually this is a Jason complaint corner, but I really want to talk Mitch Wishnowsky.
Do tell, friend. I'm going to step away real quick and help Avery with something, but I'm listening.
That blocked punt, man, really stuck with me. And there's just something about it because who recovered it? I know CJ Ham blocked it, which like shout out to him. I don't have who recovered it, but whoever recovered it was on the ground, and Mitch Wishnowsky just kind of stopped. He didn't touch him. He didn't it's football. You got to touch him down. Minnesota gets 15 more yards, and they get a field goal out of it. Obviously, it's not the biggest pain. I will say a block punt coming after Dallas Turner's kind of punt mistake was kind of funny. But I know I've been saying the 97-yard touchdown was the play where it's like, this isn't the Niners' day. I think my first inkling was the punt and watching Mitch Wishnowsky not do anything and allowing a guy to get back up and run with it. That was my first real inkling. Then maybe my least complaint, the onside kick.
That was horrible.
Listen, I don't want to say I gave up on the onside kick before it happened, and I don't have the stats to look this up, but I'm pretty sure that if you lay the ball on its side and not on a tee for an onside kick, the recovery rate for the offense is 0.00. There is nothing that gives me less confidence in the world than an onside kick with the ball laying flat on the ground sideways. Because, like, to me, podcaster take, onside kicks are as simple as just kicking the top part of the ball and getting the right bounce.
And getting it bouncing into your guy, right?
And that's not easy, obviously. I'm not saying onside kick. But, Jason, if the ball doesn't bounce and the ball doesn't go 10 yards, you know what's not going to happen? You're not going to get the football back. And I know I'm complaining about an onside kick, a play that works 6% of the time or whatever it is.
Keep cooking, man.
But I don't know. I was grumpy with. I think we'll give this award out, the first ever non 3 stars award. Andrew was frustrated at the 49ers, so he found somebody who had nothing to do about it to yell at, and that's Mitch Wishnowsky this week. I'm yelling at Mitch Wishnowsky for things that aren't. The touchdown punt that I'm still very angry about it. But the onside kick, if the ball is on the ground, dude, laying on its side flat, it's not going to be a good onside kick. That's all I got.
Okay, Aussie player. Let's put some. Rugby player. Let's put some hands on some people.
You remember his rookie year in the preseason when he laid out that
he
one
hit somebody,
Broncos
Andrew.
player,
Oh my God!
and
it's
we loved
totally
him.
worth the 4th-round punter.
I would have liked to see some of that enthusiasm yesterday when that Vikings player was on the ground with the ball and all you had to do was touch him.
Okay, man. Well, block punt for sure. And then obviously shout out to the 49ers defense because they just gave up 3 points. Mm-hmm. The onside kick, they practiced that.
Yeah.
They practiced that one.
Yeah.
Look, man, Mitch Wishnowsky is probably the least thing that I'm most upset about. But I'm very happy.
Yes, absolutely.
But I'm very happy. I'm very happy that with this preseason and the 49ers bringing in the former Steelers punter and seeing that he does pretty well, I'm glad that now look, every genius is labeled crazy first. So I was crazy for being mad about them even drafting a 4th-round kicker. And now you realize that you can just pick up a guy who's kicked, a few times and he could be all right.
Don't even get me started on Brandon Aubrey.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, hey, look, let's keep it good because Jake Moutier still ain't missed no kicks. So
7 for 7, baby.
He's good in my book. But I have an issue with that, and I just have an issue with remember when everyone tried to gaslight us in 2021? Because in the Cincinnati game, someone fumbled the football. And they said, Mitch Wishnowsky kicked the banana ball that he always does. And it makes people fucking do it every time.
That's what I say. I say it every time they say it. Anytime he forces a muff and the Niners recover, the commentary loves to be like, oh, he does the knuckle punt and it's hard to recover. And it's like, why does he do it every time then? Like, what are we doing?
I love the way he just saves it for a random Week 11 game and never uses it again. You use it in the Super Bowl. But everybody wants to look at me like I'm crazy because you don't draft specialists, not pickers in any round. But whatever. Thank you, Andrew. You got me all riled up.
I got you riled up about special teams. I think I did my job.
Christ, the banana ball. He's a fucking punter. He kicks the ball just like everyone else does. He's not special. None of them are. Jesus Christ.
They're on special teams, Jason. Hey, what's your third and final thing before we get to our?
My third and final thing is I want this season to already end. Like it's already like to the point. Like no. My third and final thing is Fred Warner is truly special. Mm-hmm. Fred Warner is truly special. PBU interception, forced fumble. This game is completely out of hand if it's not for Fred Warner. Yeah. And usually defensive players, particularly linebackers in today's game, don't affect the game to that degree. But Fred is not a linebacker. Mm-hmm. Fred is Fred. Watching the tape, I was so upset with certain things. The miscommunication, obviously, on the touchdown to Naylor, which, was between Charvarius Ward and somebody else. Fred is incredible, man. Um, like it almost brings a tear to your eye how much he cares and how much he hustles everywhere
Mhm.
and does everything, man. I understand that the result isn't what you want, but my God, man, Fred Warner is special. He's incredible. And I think you guys all know that. But watching it and watching the tape after a loss, which isn't easy because that's the worst tape to try to break down. My fucking God, Fred Warner is incredible, man. And I don't think there's anyone in his stratosphere at linebacker in today's game.
Yeah, I mean, look at his stat line. You mentioned some of it, but 9 total tackles, 7 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 2 pass deflections, 1 quarterback hit, 1 forced fumble, 1 interception. Like you said it, like usually when we're talking about a defensive playmaker, it's a pass rusher. That's what
It's
20
Nick Bosa.
it's Nick or just in general around the league. Like there's not many defensive playmakers that play off the defensive line. Like how many defensive playmakers are there in the secondary in the NFL nowadays? It's you got guys who can make picks but not playmakers because quarterbacks are so good. But there's only one middle linebacker in the NFL you can talk about being a like how many times like let's look at this game. The Niners would have lost by 3 scores yesterday if it wasn't for their middle linebacker. Do you know how insane that is?
Right,
A position that almost gets like thrown away in football
right.
today.
Yep.
And the Niners just casually have one that if the Niners would have won, he would have been the sole reason they won the football game. And he's a middle linebacker, dude. So like as I said, we're gonna talk about him in a little bit here with the 3 stars, but he's just so talented, man.
Yeah.
And he's really getting to that point where it's like he's almost at the Trent Williams point. I guess not really, because we just said some mean things about Trent Williams, but it's like we could
It's
just
not mean things. So, but,
well,
yeah.
not mean things, but it just didn't have a good game. Uh, it's not. We just have a segment every week where it's like, oh yeah, and by the way, Fred Warner's good at football, and everybody knows exactly what we're saying. So like, he's something, and I'm running out of words to say just how good he is because I've already used them all.
Mhm.
Man, I'm just. I want to start throwing the 52 comparison out there, but I'm not going to yet.
No, and I
Too
still don't
early.
think that that's fair. I think that
No,
Patrick Willis is going to be the best in any era, right?
we're getting in the
Because
realm.
yeah, no, but we're getting there to at least that conversation. But I still have a hard time because Pat was competing with Ray Lewis and Brian Urlacher and Luke Kuechly. Those are like some of the best that are, like right now the position's completely different now in
Yeah.
my at middle linebacker, right? And
Mhm.
that's because he's a former safety and everything. But my God, I like regardless of what happened, and I know nobody's gonna be able to say like, oh, this is cool because they lost. Just enjoy what the fuck you're watching because he's
Mhm.
just been incredible, man.
Yep. Jason, let's get to the 3 stars. We're already at
Yep,
45 minutes, so we're pushing it a little bit here. Let's get to
yep,
the 3 stars. Make it nice, clean, and quick. Because I don't,
yep.
as I said, I don't know if there
I
was
think
3
we got the
stars.
same three.
We might have the same 3. Let's see if we got the same order. My
Go.
third star is going to be Nick Bosa.
Oh, nope, then we don't.
We don't have the same 3. I,
Mm-mm.
I I know we complained about the pass rush, all that stuff, but 2 sacks is 2 sacks. I really liked him. It was either him or maybe the guy you might have. We'll see what you have. I don't know. Maybe it's just because it was his first sack of the season. I love watching Nick Bosa get sacks, and he had 2 yesterday. I'm going to put Nick Bosa my third star just because he's Nick Bosa.
George Kittle, number 3.
Okay.
Look again. Again, touchdown in the red zone, exactly what you needed. I just the framing of some of these tweets drives me crazy during Sunday. George Kittle's carted off, and it's cramps. Like, can you at least give me that context before you say
Yes, I know,
carted
right?
off? My God. Um, But touchdown in the red zone was open, particularly, especially with the way that I was watching on film about how they were running the football. He was an instrumental part with the way that Jordan Mason was able to run the football outside. They had a tough time running it inside, but they had a good time running it outside because one, Jordan Mason's really good and understands his lanes. Two, those lanes and those cutback lanes are open because of them using him as another lineman. So George Kittle, don't ever change, and also your fucking your cleat drip is
Yes.
insane. Oh my God, those Union ones go crazy. So George Kittle, my third star.
My number 2 star is gonna be Jordan Mason. I mean,
Yeah,
he did it
mine
again.
too.
Just very
Mine too.
very good physical runner. 20 carries, 100 yards, 1
Mine
touchdown.
too.
Jason, you watched the film, so I'll let you
Yeah.
kind of talk a little more on Jordan Mason here.
Yeah, I just look again. When the thing is with the outside zone is everything is designed if everyone does their job to not only push for lanes outside is to give you a cutback lane. And Mason sees all that shit so well. And he does so well with that. I think that's the part that I walked away with, when you're looking at, hey, he has a run out here and he looks and he sees the cutback lane and he gets himself a few more. There's that one play where he's literally stuffed with like 4 people in front of him and somehow he turns it into the greatest 5-yard run I've ever seen. Jordan Mason continues to be great. I just wish that Kyle Shanahan would have gave him the football a little bit more in certain times. So I'm not getting away from that either.
He got 20 carries yesterday, which is a good number.
Needed 25.
It felt like he could, especially at the start of the game. It didn't feel like they really used him as much at the start. Neither here nor there.
So the scripted plays, 3 passes and out.
Yeah.
No. The answer is no. Okay, Kyle. The answer is no with that. But okay, you got it.
Number 1 star, Jason. 1, 2, 3.
Fred Warner.
We said all the reasons. Listen, that was a very, very, very miserable football game to watch. I would 100% rewatch it just to watch Fred Warner. Like that's how spectacular. Like every negative thing we've said about this football team today excludes Fred Warner. That's like, if the Niners won that, and I don't know how you even equate this, Jason, but if the Niners won that game, I think you could make an argument, a very loose argument, that was the greatest game by a middle linebacker of all time, and I would have nothing to back it up other than me just saying it off of vibes.
Yeah.
But he just was all over the place yesterday, doing everything the Niners needed. I mean, that forced fumble, man. If the Niners come back and win that game, that forced fumble is probably the play of the season.
Yeah.
Because of the situation and where it happened. Fred Warner's the best. Oh, man, he's the best player in the Niners. I'm going to go as far as to say it now.
100%.
I think he's in a place where you could say he's better
100%.
than Trent and Nick Bosa at this point.
Yep.
He's the best player of the Niners, guys. And it is what it just is.
Yeah. And again, man, it's just the intensity just continuing, right? A lot of other people would be kind of let down by the way that your teammates are playing.
Yeah.
And Fred's the example. But we're just blessed, man. We're lucky. I don't give a shit what anybody says, man. When you think about Fred Warner being able to carry CeeDee Lamb up the seam at certain times, when you think about some of the things that he does, just I don't see how you can literally not think anything other than the fact that there is Fred and there's everyone else at the position. And the 49ers have 3 or 4 of the best players at their position somehow, which makes this game all the more frustrating.
What a stretch of linebackers the Niners have had.
Even Chris Borland.
Yeah, you got to throw it if you pull the microscope out, you're just Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis, and Fred Warner. But if you zoom the microscope in, there's that one Chris Borland year where it's man, Niners got some linebackers. So
Ahmad Brooks was more of an edge too, but he's a linebacker too. I don't know how over different regimes the 49ers continue to just keep finding linebackers.
The few years where they had Takeo Spikes, that was cool.
And then Dre Greenlaw's really good at football as well too. Aziz Al-Shaair is really good at football as well too, even though he doesn't play with us anymore.
Not a Mike linebacker, Jason. Can't play with Fred. Hey, you got that. You got me with that yesterday. Though, so.
I love you, buddy. I love you, Aziz, man. I hope you're good, man. And I just want you to know that we were always on your side, Aziz. We were always on your side. You needed to play more than anybody did. I don't want to hear it.
Jason, I see a lot of Rams fans in the chat already. That is a Friday episode conversation because we'll go to bed tonight. It's still Vikings week, but we wake up tomorrow. It is Rams week. Always one of the more fun weeks on the Spring Red Option podcast. I saw Marketing Pro in there. I see Rod talking Rams.
Oh, we're back. We are so back.
We're so back. Week 3. Oh yeah.
Look,
LED.
Do it.
He wanted us to talk real quick.
Do it. And I gotta go right after this. We
got to talk about it really quick. Yeah. So 4 days ago it was 1 year anniversary of a tweet that was liked by both Jason Aponte and I of Megan Thee Stallion. I think you can fill in some blanks here. But what's funny is before that tweet was sent to, because I remember you sent it to us last year. Jason Aponte and I are both fans of Meg Thee Stallion's Instagram page too.
Big Meg Thee Stallion fans.
And so
Devontae
2
Smith
years.
just scored a touchdown, 7-3.
Thank you, LED. 2 years ago. But I remember before that tweet was sent to us, me and Jason being like, I can't think of a better marketing than somebody screenshotting that Andrew Pasquini and Jason Aponte like this Megan Thee Stallion video. And then like 2 weeks later, the tweet got sent to us. So a little inside joke with Jason and I, but then it finally happened. And so the fact that you had that ready to go, hey man, shout out Megan Thee Stallion. That's all I got.
Meg, big fan.
If the Niners ever play the Houston Texans, we would love. Honestly, the Niners don't even have to play the Texans. We would love for Megan Thee Stallion to jump on this podcast. Talk 49ers football.
So we've had doctors, we've had 49ers players, we've had esteemed analysts and people who have been nice enough to give us their time. But I think the apex of this podcast is being able to get the hot girl colonel, the hot girl general to join the podcast and talk ball with us. So
we could not even talk ball. We could have her break down the tape, man. And I ain't talking all 22. Jason.
Hey, we could break down the videos and stuff. Yay.
Jason, I need to learn to dance. I'm a star. Hey, she pulled the guy out. She pulled the guy out in the VMAs.
The VMAs, cool.
That's pretty cool. We're talking Megan Thee Stallion. This is why Niners losses never hurt, because we just talk Megan Thee Stallion.
And if you think that we're not watching the tape, then I think you're sorely mistaken. Like we are absolutely breaking down the film.
We're watching multiple tapes, multiple films at all times, especially on Instagram. Jason Aponte, as always.
Let's go Niners, guys. Chill out. We'll be all right.
Well, let's go Niners. Everything is fine. I promise. It's Rams week, and you know what they say about the Rams.
Welcome everybody.
We are live.
My name is Jason Aponte.
I am Andrew Pasquini.
We're working. That's it. We're working over here. That's it. Let's go Niners.
Let's go Niners.